Hello, welcome to Tech Digest for February 9th. Kicking things off, so major shift for Discord users. If you're managing a community or trying to access age-restricted content, so you gotta get ready to prove that you're actually human. Reports indicate that starting next month, Discord is rolling out a requirement for face scans or government ID verification for full access to certain features. So it's a massive move for a platform that has been traditionally pseudonym friendly, effectively ending the era of anonymous age gating. And this is something that Roblox also rolled out a couple of weeks ago. There's quite a bit of overlap here. We'll see if how the communities start following. Mhm. Moving on to security, European Commission has disclosed a significant breach affecting its internal infrastructure. The attack specifically targeted their mobile device management, the MDM platform. If you work in enterprise IT, you know that MDMs like Intune are the keys to the kingdom for managing remote devices. So the commission found evidence that this central infrastructure was compromised, exposing staff mobile data. It's a stark reminder that even high-level government infrastructure isn't immune to supply chain or platform-specific exploits targeting the tools used to secure endpoints. And again, you gotta remind yourself: do you want to use your personal device for work or get a separate one? If your CI/CD pipelines failed yesterday, you were not alone. GitHub suffered multiple outages within the same 24-hour window. This is one of the incidents, um, and the history you can see here. So a bunch of services were knocked offline. Um, you can see here degraded performance across the board. Here's a fascinating experiment for compiler nerds. So we talked about the C compiler that Claude wrote. So this article pits it against GCC. The comparison dives into whether an AI model can effectively act as compiler backend of sorts, translating C code into machine instructions. So while standard compilers like GCC are deterministic and heavily optimized over decades, this experiment tests the boundaries of AI in low-level code generation. So we're not replacing your toolchain yet, but it's an interesting look into how LLMs handle rigorous structural logic and verifiable domains, of course. So these are the perf numbers and errors. Back to security, this one is sneaky. Researchers have identified a technique dubbed sleeper shells targeting Ivanti EPMM, Endpoint Manager Mobile. Attackers are planting dormant backdoors that don't immediately beacon out or execute, making them incredibly hard to detect with standard monitoring tools. These shells sit quietly, waiting for a specific trigger to wake up, and this persistent mechanism allows threat actors to maintain long-term access to enterprise networks even after the initial vulnerability might have been patched. Ooh, that's scary. In the category of because we can, somebody created UEFI bindings for JavaScript. So this project, hosted on Codeberg, enables developers to run JavaScript code during the boot process, interfacing directly with UEFI interface. So usually this is the domain of C or strictly low-level languages. Binding this high-level garbage collected language like JavaScript to bare metal boot environment is kind of bold. I wish there was a demo. Um, so it opens up some wild possibilities for boot time scripting, though sysadmins are probably sweating just thinking about this. No screenshot. That's sad. It's POC. Should test it or not. So Google Research has dropped a new paper on traffic safety that leverages the massive amount of telemetry data they have access to. They're analyzing heartbreaking events, those moments where you slam on the brakes, and using them as leading indicators for crash risk on specific road segments. Instead of waiting for accident reports to identify dangerous intersections, this methodology uses aggregate driving behavior to predict high risk areas before crash happen. It's a great example of using data science to prove physical infrastructure safety. And of course, citizen apps that report potholes or even automatically report potholes have been around for a while. But this is different. This is actually watching your driving behavior. This is what insurance companies already do. But this is nice that it actually exposes it to the governments potentially. A developer on Hacker News has released a tool to algorithmically find the longest line of sight on Earth. So this isn't just drawing a line on 2D map like you see, going from Africa to Asia. This algorithm accounts for the curvature, elevation data, and refraction um, to determine strictly visible points. It's computationally heavy geospatial problem. And the result is, the project is called All the Views, and the result visualizes these long distance views, solving a question that sounds simple but requires serious topographical processing to answer accurately. That's cool. So, yeah, of course, this is Everest here. So going from Kyrgyzstan all the way to Everest. That's cool. Yeah, and this is like the desert. There's nothing in there. So it makes sense. What's the second one? Ooh, that's interesting. I didn't know this was so high. And then, of course, across the Black Sea. Awesome. And you can explore it yourself. Let's see if this is still up. Yes, it is. Cool. Yeah, Sierra Nevada. Okay. So, on the hardware front, TSMC is expanding its footprint for AI silicon. So, the chip giant has announced plans to manufacture advanced AI semiconductors in Japan. So this is a strategic move to diversify the supply chain for high performance chips that power everything from LLMs, of course, to data centers. By bringing advanced packaging and fabrication for AI workloads to Japan, TSMC is creating more redundancy in a supply chain that has been heavily concentrated in Taiwan. And they are already trying to do this in United States, of course. So we'll see how many employees actually get to go to Japan, because that's the critical part of this. Finally, we're closing with classic hardware hack. A developer took a cheap $3.88 analog clock from Walmart and upgraded it with ESP8266 microcontroller. By hijacking the clock's stepper motor mechanism in the back here, and syncing it with the microcontroller, they turned the dumb wall clock like this into internet connected device that syncs the time via NTP, of course. So it's a perfect example of how cheap accessible silicon like ESP series allows us to reverse engineer and upgrade everyday objects for pennies, really, and open source. See you next time.